This is not a typical episode in the series Life Lessons with Dr. Bob. Instead, it's an update, almost in real time, on the war in Gaza. It'll be given by Amir Avivi, a retired but still very involved Brigadier General in the Israeli Defense Forces, or IDF. As you know, just a few days ago, Israel declared war against Hamas because of their brutal, sadistic attack on October 7th, which has so far resulted in over 1,200 civilian deaths. Directly following my introduction is a webcast that was recorded yesterday, October 11th, in Israel by General Avivi, giving us a first-hand account of events in Israel and in Gaza.
Welcome, everyone, to this war briefing brought to you by the Israel Defense and Security Forum, IDSF. In Hebrew, our name is Abitronistim. Thank you all for joining us again. This is now our fourth day of war briefings, and I thank everyone really for tuning in. And of course, a huge thank you to Brigadier General Amir Avivi for sharing his time with us, keeping us informed and connected to what is happening here in Israel. There's been a huge outpour of support for the war effort. Kind words, thoughts, prayers. People have contacted their elected officials, have reached out to local media, attended rallies, and of course, donated generously. A big thank you to everyone. We need all the support that you can muster. Israel is at war. The Jewish people are at war. It's heart-wrenching to see what is happening here, the announcements of fallen soldiers, and the funerals. We ask all lovers of Israel around the world to support us. We are all on the battlefield. We are again sharing the links in this webinar to our IDSF campaign, the proceeds of which are quite literally being used to save lives and fight for Israel, which you'll hear a little bit more about. And with that, I bring you General Avivi.
Thank you all. I think that the more the day pass and the more we see the videos and hear every hour on TV and radio, the survivors of this massacre, it's unbelievable. It's really something we haven't experienced since the Holocaust. It's really, really tough. I don't think there is one family in Israel that doesn't know somebody who died, a family member, or friends, or so. Really, this is really devastating. Before I give a professional briefing, I'm getting contacted a lot overall about issues of donations to different things. I know everybody can want to help in many different ways. Some ways are really with the potential to assist. Some might be a waste of money. And I want to try to help you guys, a bit focus the way that you can really assist and then help. I asked Ronit. Ronit was recruited to IDSF a few weeks. Ronit lives in the Gaza region, and she's managing all of our donation efforts. And because Ronit lives in the area of the Gaza Strip many years and is a very dominant figure in this region, we were able to reach out to all the communities directly, really pinpoint what they need. And I'd like Ronit to present herself and also share with us a bit her experience in the Gaza region and what we understand about the needs in the towns at the moment in Gaza.
So hello, and thank you all for joining us. My name is Ronit Farkash, and I live in Moshav Tkuma near the Gaza border. I've been living there in the past 20 years. And I have to say that there has never been anything like the time we've been experiencing lately. I wanted to tell you about what is the area around the Gaza border. We have four regional councils and one city of Sderot. Altogether, 57 kibbutzim and moshavim that are located all around the border. Now, each of these kibbutzim and moshavim have a civilian defense emergency squad. It's made of a person who is the leader. He's the squad leader. He's from the army. And the rest of the people are civilian volunteers. These civilian volunteers, these emergency squads are the ones that fought against the terrorists, against Hamas when they've invaded the kibbutzim and the moshavim. They were on the front line, these amazing people. And what I wanted to tell you is that I've spoken to every single member in the municipalities, in these 4 municipalities, and I've asked them to organize a list of necessary equipment, security equipment, because right now, many residents have left, but there still are people living there. If it's people with disabilities or elderly, they can't leave. And of course, the civilian defense emergency squad keep occupying the places and protecting them. There's also soldiers in the area before entering the Gaza border towards war, and there's a lot to do. A lot of the equipment has been destroyed during the Hamas massacre. Cars, and I'm talking about the cars that belong to the municipalities. If it's security cars that have been burned, or ones that are even armed. And I have received a whole list of security needs of first degree that they need right now, such as kits for the squads, for the emergency squads, containing bulletproof vests, containing all the materials like flashlights, and doctors' kits, defibrillators. They need vehicles. At the moment, there are many terrorists walking around and all of a sudden popping, and they don't, the Negev Regional Council, they had to rent out cars so that they can afford jumping at a pole of a residence. It's inexplicable. Something very, very hard to understand. Safety of the residents is number one. So I have a whole list, and I guess Moshe will present it to any of you who are interested later on after the webinar. Moshe has all the information and all the costs of these very, very important equipment that we need to purchase. So thank you again for listening, and let's hope for better days.
Yeah, as for the army again and again and again is saying we are able to provide the soldiers with everything they need. Please don't send us equipment. And furthermore, they say we're not going to use it, so please don't send it. Look, I from what I see, talking about the ground forces, which are the main forces that need equipment, is that it will take a few more days probably to mobilize them. So the army has a few more days to finish equipping the forces. And they are doing the purchase. They are, the army has huge capabilities of purchasing equipment on a huge scale. A lot of it also we are getting by airplanes from the US. The army is doing that. So in this sense, I think that really taking care of this security squads in the south, but also in the north and in Judea and Samaria, this is something that we really need to focus on, because I think that what might happen is that when the army starts maneuvering into Gaza, we might see major attacks in Judea and Samaria, in the south, or with Bedouins, or in the north. with Israeli Arabs, maybe not, but we don't know. We need to be ready. So definitely it would be wise to do that. And also, we as IDSF, we are focusing a part of all our job talking on TV, media, which is a lot of what we do, and work with the government and advise them about the war. We're also recruiting the people for the National Guard. This is a big effort and a big campaign that we are dealing with. And of course, we also need help with that. The biggest news have just arrived. We have a united government, finally. Benny Gantz and Gadi Eisenkot, their parties are joining. Their party are joining the government. They agreed on a small cabinet that will include 3 people: Netanyahu, the Minister of Defense, and Benny Gantz, but also 2 observers. Gadi Eisenkot, which was the chief of staff, and Ron Dermer. So 5 very, very, very experienced and good people in this cabinet. We don't need a bigger cabinet, it's big enough. Of course, all the services around that, to conduct this very challenging war. I'm sorry that at the moment Lapid didn't join. I think it's a mistake, but maybe as the war evolves, we'll see also more parties joining and a bigger and more united government. Israel was very, very moved by President Biden's speech yesterday. It was talked a lot today in Israel. And I think that the most important thing, he said many things, but the most important thing was his last word: don't. Saying to Hezbollah and to Iran, don't even think to get involved. I can say that the first airplane with supplies for the army from the US landed in Israel. And now more and more airplanes are arriving, and we're getting more and more munition and equipment. This is ongoing. Today also, the warships of the US have arrived to the Mediterranean Sea and are approaching near the Lebanese border, the water of Lebanon. This is dramatic for Israel. It helps us secure the north and from Iran and really concentrate on what's going on in Gaza. In Gaza, humanitarily, we're not giving them electricity, no food, no water. And I believe that in the next coming days, the pressure on Gaza is going to grow and grow and grow. Israel has said, that's it, we'll never give you anything. We don't have anything to do with you. We're doing a blockade. Anything that they are trying to bring from Egypt, we attack. And as long as they are holding our hostages, no water, no food, no electricity. The other thing is that the Air Force is concentrating on targeting all the leadership of Hamas and also their families. So today, we attacked the family of the commander of the military forces of Hamas, Def. We killed a big portion of his family and brother, but of course we want to kill him. And we are targeting more and more leaders. And also the way the Air Force is working, each time, every 4 or 5 hours, we send a massive attack to a specific area and simply destroy all the area, whole neighborhoods that are military strongholds. We're simply tearing apart and destroying. In the previous operations, each time we shot a building, we send a signal first. Now, if we know that this is a military building, we don't give any notice. We simply take down the building with the people inside because it's a military target. I'm saying this, but I want to be clear. Everything we are doing is according to international law. We're not doing anything that is not according to international law. The Air Force attack are quite meaningful. But I must say that Hamas is functioning. They're shooting rockets all over the place, to Tel Aviv, to Sderot, to other areas. They're still commanding and doing what they need to do. And I think this is a very, very important lesson that I talk about a lot on TV, that people don't understand, that in the world of war, there is a kind of dialectic relations between capability and the ability of the enemy to adapt. So, for example, the leading thing in the Six-Day War was the Air Force attack that destroyed the Air Force of Egypt and Syria. And Air Force became like a really dominant thing. And then came Yom Kippur War 6 years later. And the Israeli Air Force couldn't function because they brought more sophisticated air defense and managed to really stop our airplanes and create a reality where we are not really functioning with the airplanes. And this is something that I would say this: if the leading thing that the IDF developed in the last maybe 10, 20 years is Air Force and intelligence, Hamas adapted to both. We saw how they are able to overcome completely all our amazing intelligence. And also, they have built the whole infrastructure in Gaza in a way that no matter how much we do with the Air Force, and we are doing a lot, they will probably still be able to function to a certain extent. So the Air Force is continuing the attacks. We had like 3 really big attacks today. At the same time, for the first time in Gaza, we are operating also with the ground long-range attacks of MLRS. Also shooting targets inside Gaza. The army is strong around Gaza, but there is still terrorists that remain from the first 2 days or 3 days that are around inside. Today, I think we killed like 18 of those terrorists. And there was an attempt in the sea for scuba dive, a guy that tried to reach Ashkelon. So we are still encountering terrorists inside Israel, but the army overall is completely controlling the border. The border is closed. Nobody managed to cross the border in the last 2 days. It's all full of forces and tanks, and it's very fortified now. All civilians in the region where Ronit lives were evacuated. A part of the city of Sderot, the city was not evacuated. But anybody who wants to live, of course, the country arranges hotels and things like that, and help and assist in this sense. The ground forces in the south are preparing, training, equipping. It's a process. I said it in the last 2 days. Moving the ground forces, it takes time, and we're still preparing. And my son has been drafted, and my daughter as well. And so just even by talking with my son, I see that okay, it takes time. They're still preparing. And in the north, today there was a anti-tank missile shooting into Israel. We retaliated and we killed some Hezbollah operatives. And basically, the situation in the north hasn't changed. The Hezbollah are here and there with mostly Palestinians carrying out some local attacks, but not in a way that might really bring us on the verge of war with Hezbollah. It doesn't seem that Hezbollah is interested to go into this war. They are deterred by the Americans. Now we are in full force. The Northern Command is completely ready for war. And also, they didn't start at the beginning. So I'm assuming that the Iranian directive is don't go into war because we need you intact and ready for future missions, especially if somebody thinks about attacking Iran. So this hasn't changed, but maybe they don't want to fight. I'm not sure about us. We already mobilized the whole army. So we'll have to see if there will be any motivation on our side, maybe to attack them, but it's too soon to say. So the other regions, I won't say completely quiet, but I can say that the Israeli Arab Society are part of some riots in Jerusalem, and not too much. Where I don't know what will happen in the prayers on Friday. We'll have to see. But overall, the Israeli Arab Society is fairly quiet. There are terror attacks in Judea and Samaria, but not something different from what we saw before, maybe even less. So really, we're mostly focused on the south. The morale is very, very high. People are motivated, but I must say people want vengeance. They really want to go in and destroy Hamas. And I think that this is what eventually is going to happen. And we'll continue our operation. So this is basically the situation. Every hour there's something going on, but I must say that, when I'm sitting on these TV stations, a lot of the time is hearing the victims or the families of the victims telling the story of what happened, and every story is really devastating. It's terrible. And it will take us, I think, a bit of time to understand how bad this was. I can say that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs is sending uncensored videos everywhere with shocking images. And I think that this creates really an understanding in the world how terrible Hamas is. And I think that we managed to really bring an understanding that Hamas is ISIS. It's not different, it's just local, not spread around, it's the same. So I will stop here, and I'm happy to answer questions. So please feel free to ask questions to me or to Ronit, for that matter. Please. Moshe?
General, thank you so much. Thank you so much for this very informative briefing. And again, a reminder to all of our supporters, you see the link and the QR code on the screen. And a very big thank you to people who have actively contributed to our war cause as this webinar is proceeding. General, one question that is coming in a lot right now, if you could just clarify, you mentioned that the IDF and the Air Force is targeting the families of Hamas leaders. That makes it sound to some audiences that IDF is maybe breaking international law. Maybe they're going after innocent children. Can you clarify what that means exactly, that they're going after the families? Likewise,
Yes.
the cutting off of the electricity and the water. Can you also explain how that works into international law, please?
Yeah, so basically what happens is that the terrorists, in order to survive, they surround themselves by their families. So in the past, although there is no problem in international law, if you have a militant, you can shoot him, even if there are civilians there. Here, in the past, we wanted to minimize collateral damage. So even if we knew that a terrorist was in a place and our family is there, many times we gave a warning, we didn't shoot. We told the family to go out. But now we're sticking to international law. If we know that there is a terrorist inside the building, the house, even if the family is there, we target the house. And this is according to international law. We are encouraging and trying to work with the US to convince Egypt to open completely the border and let the Gazan people go out to the Sinai Peninsula to leave Gaza. We want Gaza with as minimum civilians as possible. So this again can take down collateral damage, especially once we start maneuvering. Egypt is not really willing so fast to open the border, but I think there will be a big pressure from the world and from the US because they cannot really lock people inside in a zone, in a war zone, and they will have to eventually let them out. So I'm expecting huge numbers of civilians of Gaza leaving Gaza to the Sinai Peninsula. By the way, in the last decade, 300,000 Gazans simply left Gaza and didn't return. They went to Turkey and to Europe. I believe that also in this case, once people leave to the Sinai Peninsula, some, of course, will return after the war, but many won't. They'll continue on their journey to Turkey. Turkey really wants to absorb as many Palestinians as possible. Why? Because Erdogan is really worried about the fact that the demographics in Turkey are changing, and the Kurds are becoming a bigger and bigger part of the society. So the way Erdogan wants to deal with it, because Turkey is a huge country, they don't have a problem to get a million more, 2 million more people, or even more. He wants to bring more Sunnis. And the Palestinians are very good candidates for the Turks. And they opened an office in Gaza to give visas to Palestinians to come and live in Turkey. And many of them do. So I would assume that with this devastating war, there will be many, many that will want to emigrate and leave Gaza Strip. And at least humanitarily, we need to really work out the issue with the Egyptians and open the border.
And then speaking to that same issue, in past briefings, you've spoken extensively about the network of Bedouins and other groups in the Negev who are very connected within Israel to Gaza, to Egypt. Can you maybe describe, is that having an impact right now in terms of tunnels or in terms of networks that are potentially harming the war efforts?
So I must say that in this massive shooting we saw from Gaza in this war, many Bedouins were hurt and killed as well. They shot indiscriminately, and also Israeli Arabs and Bedouins were hit. What I'm seeing, I can tell you that, was this huge massacre during Saturday night. I interviewed on I-24 in Jaffa. Jaffa is like packed with Arabs. Well, in previous operations, I would come to I-24 or to Jaffa and see the Arabs celebrating. When I came that evening, it was the first day, not a single person was on the streets. They closed all the shops. They closed everything. Jaffa was closed. And I don't think it's because they were afraid of the rockets. I think they're in shock. And I think that even most of the Israeli Arab society are shocked, are really shocked by what happened there, and understand the consequences of supporting such a thing. In this case, especially what's going on now, if an Arab supports this, he might get his citizenship revoked and being deported. We finished playing around. So also the same goes for the Bedouins. They're quiet at the moment. I mean, I don't know what will happen when we start the ground forces operation, but it seems that it's very, very, very different from what we saw in Operation Guardians of the Wall. And this is an important lesson because every war, every operation, every event is unique. Many times we try to picture it as something we know, but no, it's different. It's not the same.
Okay, and if we could just look inside Israel for a moment, and I know that IDSF was incredibly active in writing a letter and pushing this idea of a unity government for the sake of the war. Can you just describe why is that so critical? Is that just optics? Is that for unity? Will that have a significant effect on this war? Will it push things more aggressive or more passive? Why is that important right now, the unity government?
I think that everything that happened inside Israel, it's the politicians tearing us apart. Even, looking at the judicial review, serious politicians who care about the country would have long ago found some common ground and pass some reform. But really, the crazy motivation to bring the government at any cost down drove the whole society crazy. And when politicians unite, this is a very important message to the society. And the society is already united. We are all fighting together. There is always, and I see it especially on Twitter and things like that, like 3%, 4% idiots, I don't have any other name to say it, that continue to, instead of uniting, continue fighting and accusing and dealing with politics while people are dying. But this is not most of the society. The vast majority really united and are fighting together, religious and non-religious, and people from the south and the north and the center, everybody's together. Jews, Israeli Arabs that serve in the army, all of them together. And so yes, it's a very important issue, and I'm really happy that we have a government that is big. I think it's also important internationally because it sends a message. This is not just about a right-wing government, or some view it as a radical right government. No, this is about all of us. And it's a message to Europe, it's a message to the US. We are all together in this. We all believe that we need to destroy Hamas. We're going to do this together. We're going to stand behind our soldiers. And this is what's happening. And I'm really hoping that more parties will join, and this will grow.
Brigadier General Amir Avivi, thank you so much for your leadership, for sharing your time and wisdom with us during this really horrible, difficult war. But there's really a thread of optimism when we hear what you have to say and your guidance. And a very big thank you to Ronit for joining us. We wish you great strength where you are on the Gaza border. And we'd love, Ronit, if you could share some parting words with us, please.
Of course. Just want to say that I have 4 kids, 2 of them in the army, and my husband is also during reserve near the Gaza border. I'm very connected to the people, and that is why I'm here today. I want you to hear the residents' voices. I am proud to say that we all have their faith in us and us representing them and their needs. And whatever you can do to help them, if you could turn to Moshe after this webinar, that would be an act of very goodwill. So thank you all.
Thank you very much. Thank you all.